Restaurant Unstoppable. What the most successful restaurateurs know that you don't. Well, yeah, let's get into some of those mistakes you're talking about. Like, what, reflecting back, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently then, or what could you have done better then?
I needed to slow down and realize that I wasn't good. I wasn't good enough. I needed more experience.
What weren't you good at?
I just, I knew what I knew. I had a couple tricks up my sleeve, and I read an article, I think Evan Funke wrote it, where he said, I'm going to paraphrase, but it was something like, oh yeah, you get this cook who's worked at a couple restaurants, has had a great job as a sous chef running one really great place, staged here and there, understands how to plate some things, knows how to do some ordering, but I wasn't ready to be a leader. And I opened up this restaurant without all the experience that I should have had. I think I had just turned, I was 27 almost, 28.
Your first executive chef role.
Yeah, and it was just, I just didn't know what I was doing. But I made up for it with my work ethic and working 7 days a week. And, I didn't take no for an answer. And it was hard,
So with the leadership skills you've developed since 2005, over the past, 15 years, reflecting back at how you might have handled some of those situations, those leadership situations, how would you handle them differently today, with the man you are today, the lessons you've learned today about leadership?
Oh, man. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's like the butterfly effect, right?
Yeah.
I go back and change that, and what happens if, right now I'd be an attorney.
True.
Who knows?
Yeah.
It's really hard to say, but I guess anger was my biggest hurdle to get over, is my temper. And I had come up working in industries where the people that I respected yelled at me. So when I got to be the person that other people respected, I thought I had to yell at them. And I perpetuated this like systemic anger and violence in our industry that I'm now embarrassed about, to be honest. I'm sad.
But you don't know what you don't know, and I feel like we are a byproduct of what was taught. It's that nurture, like nature and nurture. Some of it's you just have no control over the nature, and then nurture you really don't have that much control over too. It's what you knew. It's how you were taught how to lead, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many factors at play, but at the end of the day, I would have learned that had I just been a little bit more experienced, and I waited. I think I should have been a line cook longer than I was. I shouldn't have rushed into wanting to be a chef so young.
So it sounds like now you've been able to kind of wrangle in your anger when it doesn't get away from you as easily as it used to. What happens when you feel it swelling? When you feel it coming on? When you're clenching your teeth and you want to go there? How do you take yourself away from jumping off that cliff?
Just take a deep breath, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just I meditate every day and just try to stay positive.
When did you start meditating?
When I was 15.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. Any advice on that and how that serves you with keeping it cool?
Hey, if you can't be comfortable sitting alone in your own body, thinking about how comfortable you are in your body, you cannot be comfortable in the world.
I love it. Any other key lessons on business that you took? I mean, Garrett Harker, great restaurateur. Did he teach you anything?
Yeah, Garrett taught me that empathy is so important, and that, the guest isn't always right, but the restaurant's not always right, and then working together, you have to find a middle ground where everybody seems satisfied, and that means that every individual is an individual, and every table is an individual table, so there's no one-size-fits-all answer, and it really opened my eyes up to being more of a hospitality-driven chef than I had been before. Didn't stop me from running that restaurant like I was a tyrant, but looking back, I learned so much about that.
Any other key lessons with Garrett Harker before we move on to you and Ken Oranger?
Yeah, I mean, Garrett believed in me. I don't know why, but when I speak to him about it, and I'm like, gee, why me? He says, you just had something, and you had a passion. And he says, I knew you weren't ready. And I've actually, one time I said, when we first opened, I go, Garrett, if I'd known this restaurant was going to be this busy, I don't think I would have taken this job. And he said, if I'd known this restaurant was going to be this busy, I definitely wouldn't have hired you. And I take that as a compliment,
But how did you grow up? Reflecting back at this time, because it definitely had a transformative effect on you. If you could look back at that time, that 2 years with Eastern Standard, how did you come out of that stronger?
incredible fear of failure.
So you came out of that stronger because of your fear of failing at Eastern Standard, or going forward failing, or both?
Failing at Eastern Standard, which, when I left there with a 2-star review, a couple other reviews. The restaurant was respected by people in the industry, but it wasn't a culinary destination. Like, what I was doing there with food was serviceable, and some things were great and some things were mediocre. I just needed more training, and I needed to slow down. I just really needed to slow my roll, as they say.
Yeah, I think that's really incredible advice. I mean, like, what do you mean by slow down? Like, really kind of paint that picture. Like, what were you doing, and what does slowing down look like?
So at the time, people were asking me to teach classes at Boston University, which I was doing. And they were asking to come stage with me to learn about cooking, and asking me how I thought about food and how I came up with ideas. And I realized that I wanted to be asking those questions, not answering them. And I started talking to my friends, and I started talking to Andrew Holden, the general manager. And we kept talking about Ken Oringer, who was still my friend. But Andrew had just worked for Ken for many years at Clio. And I always said, if there's one chef that I would want to work for, I would just really want to learn from Ken. And then serendipity being what it is, Ken called me.